Hey everybody. Yeah, been a little while since I've been on here. I've been busy doing some other things, sometimes it goes that way. But I'm kind of glad I haven't worked on this Vega for a while because I actually got a message on Facebook not too long ago and I learned some really interesting things about this car. I actually got a message on Facebook from a guy who owned this car before Mickey Gillum owned it, and he actually built the car. And he messaged me on Facebook and said, "Hey, do you own that Vega?" And I said, "Yeah, I own it." And he said, "Well," he said, "I built that car." He says, "You want to know something about it? Give me a call." So I actually called him and talked to him, and I'm glad I did because I found out some very interesting information about this car. That it's not exactly what I was told it was when I bought it, which is no surprise because I figured Mickey was a liar just by the way he acted. And but it's still a good car, and we're still going to rip it. So let me tell you what I found out. And actually, we're going to go a whole different route than we would have gone. And I'm kind of glad this guy called me, and I'm glad that he gave me the information he gave me because I'm going to make some changes to this car that are going to make it more affordable for me to race it. So let me tell you what I found out, and then we'll talk about what we're going to do, what changes I'm going to make, and then we'll start working on this thing and get it ready to go because No Name Nationals is coming up. I got to get it done. So let's look at the information I got on this car, okay? All right, let me get a drink. Okay, so the guy who called me about this car, his name's Mike. I'm not going to give out his last name, but his name's Mike. And he owned this car approximately 4 years ago or so, maybe 5 years ago. And when he bought the car, it had a big block Chevy engine in it, and he raced it for a while, and it flattened out the cam, and so he decided he wanted to go bigger and better on it. So here's what I found out from him. So there's a company in Bohemia, New York, a machine shop in Bohemia, New York, called Shafiroff Racing. That's Shafiroff, Shafiroff Racing. And they build lots of engines, drag car engines, race car engines. They do small blocks, big blocks, about anything you want, they can build it for you. So anyhow, he talked to them, and he decided he wanted a 540 cubic inch engine. So, but he didn't want to pay the $15,000 they wanted him to build it. So he bought a Merlin Big M block himself, and he built the engine himself based off their platform. And I'll tell you what he did to the engine. Here's what he told me. Oh, and by the way, I was trying to find out where this car was raced at before, and he told me it was raced out of Nation Trails, Norwalk, Mount Vernon, and a few other drag strips on the East Coast, wherever those are at. Norwalk's Virginia. So he raced it out there on the East Coast, and then I think he sold it to Mickey. Okay, so here's the information that I have on this engine. The block is a Merlin Big M block. It has Eagle crankshaft and rods in it. The rotating assembly is Eagle. It's got a red light of 6,500 RPMs. And Shafiroff, when they build engines, they build them 13 to 1 compression. But he decided to go a little less on this one. I was told this engine had 16 to 1 compression on it. That's why it was on alcohol when I bought it. But of course I got lied to. It's actually 12.5 to 1 JE pistons that are in it. So it's got 12.5 to 1 compression. JE pistons, Dart 345 heads. It does have those, which, I mean, you can see that on them. They're obviously the correct heads. But Mickey did not know what he was talking about when he talked about this motor. And unfortunately, guys, it does not put out 940 horsepower. However, it does put out 840 horsepower. So it's down 100 horsepower from when it was last time, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be fast. I'm pretty sure of that. So I'm still excited about driving it. And so anyhow, it's got JE pistons, 12.5 to 1 compression ratio, Eagle rotating assembly. And what he did what Mike did was he bought the whole top end from Shafaroff. He bought the heads, the cam, the intake, and all that stuff, all the valve train. And he put all their valve train on top of his block that he built, okay? So it's got the camshaft in it's got a 785 lift on the intake, 778 on the exhaust, and I've got all the specs here on it. The lash on it is 28 thousandths hot and 20 thousandths cold. And it's got 1:7 ratio roller rockers, which is common for a big block Chevy. So that's the engine, 840 horsepower, which is still a lot. But here's the interesting part about that engine. When I found out it's 12.5 to 1 compression, I was talking to Mike about it. I was like, well, it's got this alcohol carburetor, and I bought the kit. You guys saw me. I rebuilt the alcohol carburetor on it, and I was telling him about that, and I was like, man, alcohol is expensive, and it's hard on your engine. You know, you got to change your oil all the time and everything like that. And he said, well, he said, to tell you the truth, he said it's 12.5 to 1 compression. He said, you can run race fuel in it. I'm like, really? He said, yeah, all you got to do is put a different carburetor on it. So what I did was I still have the Pro Systems 1050 CFM Holly Dominator that I could put on it and run alcohol in it. But like I said, alcohol is expensive. It's hard on engine parts. It's very corrosive. This carburetor is ready to go. I could put it on there and run it, no problem. But here's what I decided to do, which was a kind of expensive decision that I made. But in the end, it's going to cost me a little less as far as maintenance goes. So here's what I did, guys. I went out and I bought myself I got a pretty good deal on this too. The guy I bought it from bought several of these around Christmas time last year for a discounted rate, and I got this for less than most of the other ones you can find on the internet. But here's what I've got. So now I have a 1050 CFM race fuel carburetor that's set up by Quick Fuel. It's a Quick Fuel carburetor, so it's set up. I don't know what jets are in it. I don't know what power valves are in it. It may not have any power valves in it. Probably doesn't. But it's set up to go, and I have decided that I am going to put this on this motor and run just regular race gas in it. So what I'm going to do is the local airport here in town has got avgas that's available for anyone to buy, and I believe it's, I wish I'd quit yawning. I believe it's 106 octane or 110 octane. So I'm going to go get 10 gallons of it, and I'm going to put some octane booster in it, and then I'm going to run it through this carburetor on that engine. And I'll have less maintenance, I'll have less work to do, and it'll be interesting to see how it runs with this carburetor on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this carburetor up on there, and then I'm going to adjust the valves, and I'm probably going to change the oil, because the weird part is this engine has no dipstick, so I can't look at the oil to see whether it's good or bad or ugly. I don't know, but I know it's been ran on alcohol, so the oil is probably contaminated. And I've got some fresh oil. The bad news is it takes 10 quarts of oil, which is going to be an expensive oil change for me. And I got to go get a Wix oil filter. I might have one, but I can't remember if I got one from Mickey or not. But I may have to go get one of those. And then we're going to get this thing cranked up and see how it does. I got to change the tires on it because the tires are shot. I don't trust them. I've got new tires for it, so I'm going to do that as well. But it's going to get switched over from alcohol to race gas. So that's what I'm going to do. So anyhow, let's get started on that. Let me get this carburetor set up, and we'll start bolting it together. Why not? Might as well. I I got some fancy stuff here. I got some stickers I can put on the car if I want to. Quick fuel. And I got gaskets here, looks like. Different gaskets that I can use with different size openings in them. So I got to figure out which one of those I need to use. And I can extend my warranty by 1 year. That's pretty interesting. It says you need to re-tighten the fuel bowl screws after 1 or 2 heat cycles. The non-stick gaskets will compress slightly, loosening the fuel bowl screw torque. So it could cause a decline in idle quality and possibly a fuel leak, which they didn't mention here, but yeah. So you need to re-tighten the fuel bowl screws about as tight as you can get them with a handheld screwdriver handled nut driver. And it's a good idea to check them on a regular basis, not to also. Okay, so to avoid damage is mandatory to positive. It's to avoid damage in your new carburetor is mandatory that a positive throttle gas pedal stop be installed. Failure to install the stop can result in hazardous conditions. Throttle linkage can over travel with wear. This is a problem you can avoid now by installing a positive stop with your new carburetor. Okay. All right, and then I got this little kit here. I'm not sure what this is. It's got some linkages in it, probably to change the ratio of, yeah, you can see it's got a couple different linkages in here, and they're different links. I think you guys can probably see that. See there are different links. They're different links, so probably changes the ratio of the opening of the secondary throttle plates. Oh, there's some little cotter pins. I don't want to lose those. All right, let's see what this says. Billet throttle cable bracket. You need assistance, please call QFT Sales and Tech. So 1-to-1 is the silver rod, hole number 4. Moderate is the black rod, hole 3. 25% primary throttle opening. Medium progressive, hole 2, 40% throttle opening. Full progressive, hole 1, 50% throttle opening. So I'm not sure what they mean by that. I should probably call them and ask them. Yeah. So I should probably call them and see what they're trying to tell me here. I think the 1-to-1 is obviously the front and the back barrels open exactly the same time. Moderate is at 25% throttle opening, the back barrels start to open. Medium is 40% throttle opening, the back barrels start to open. And full progressive is 50% throttle opening, the front throttle open, the back barrels start to open. That's what I'm thinking it is, but I have to call them and verify that. I'm pretty sure that's what that means. So we've got a black, we've got a silver, black, and there's a gold one in there. It doesn't say anything about the gold one. The black one is on it now. So the black one, let's see how it's set up. I'm not sure which way it goes, throttle opening, because they don't have a mark, of course. Let's see, hole number 4. Okay, so it goes top to bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4. The black rod is in hole. So the way this is set up right now, it's set up at 25%, which means when the front throttle is open at a quarter of the way, the back throttle will start to open. And that's probably a good baseline for me to try to run this thing. I would say it is anyhow. I don't know for sure because I haven't ran it yet, but I'll call them and talk to them and tell them what I got, and if they advise me to change it to something different, then I can change it to something different. I don't know. All right. So now the first problem I run into is obviously I have no way to get the fuel from my fuel line into the carburetor, and the setup that I have on the alcohol carburetor has a fuel pressure regulator that runs off of manifold vacuum. And what I was told is the way it works by Pro Systems is the way it works is as you go down the track and your RPMs increase, as the vacuum drops, it pulls more fuel to feed more fuel to the engine. So I called him up and I said, well, I've got this alcohol carburetor from you guys, and I'm going to switch to race fuel. And my question is can I use the same fuel pressure regulator on this carburetor as I did on the alcohol carburetor? And their answer was yes, you can. All you have to do is disconnect the vacuum line. You don't need manifold vacuum because you don't want to pull more fuel going down the track, because the gasoline or the race fuel carburetor is already set up to do that. So they told me that I am able to take this fuel log off of this carburetor. I've already got, I left it loose from when I rebuilt it, didn't I? So I can take this off of this carburetor, yep, that side's loose too, and I can take the vacuum line off the fuel pressure regulator. So I can basically take this setup right here and I can use it. I can use this setup on that carburetor. Now, I will tell you this much. These are a lot bigger than the fuel inlet feed lines that are on that carburetor, so I'm going to have to also take these off of here. I'm going to need those, and my kit had new gaskets on it, so I'll just take these off, and they weren't that tight, so I think I needed to, wasn't sure where I needed to put them, so I left them loose. So now I can take all this assembly here and put it on that carburetor, and I should be able to run this thing. I'm also going to need my throttle assembly, my throttle ball crank for my throttle cable. So now I'll get you guys in a better position here so you can see what I'm doing. Maybe zoom you in a little bit so you can see a little bit better. So now I can take, and I'm going to set this over here for a minute. I can take these off of this carburetor. They're loose too. That one was. Oh, yeah, that one's loose too. Okay. Well, I can take these off. And since they're the same size here, the only difference is the size of the fuel line. And these should screw right on there, I believe. Yes, they do. Look at that. That fits right on there like it's supposed to. All right. So now I can take and snug these up. And I'll guarantee you one thing, with this big of a fuel line, this car's never going to run out of fuel going down the track. That's for dadgum sure. All right. Get those snugged up so they don't leak. Okay. I need to call Shafaroff back and ask them what their timing specs are on this engine with when it's running on race gas instead of alcohol, because it might be different. I don't know. So I have to call them and ask them that question. Kind of hard to reach, so I'm just going to do this. And I want to check the ones on this side. That one's tight. I really don't want to drop this very expensive carburetor, that's for sure. That one's tight. All right. Okay, guys, so now that I got that set up, now I can take my fuel log, and hopefully it'll be the same distance. But actually I think this thing slides, so I can move it if I had to. But it should be the same. It's the same carburetor, it's just one's alcohol and one's gas. And I could have actually sent that carburetor back to Pro Systems and paid them to convert it over to gas, but I probably would have spent quite a bit of money on it. And this way, when I sell the car, whoever drives it, whoever buys it from me, can either run alcohol or they can run race fuel, whichever one they want to run. It doesn't matter. There we go. Feels like it's going in there. Okay. So now, from what I've been told, I dropped my gas. From what I've been told, I could hook my fuel line up. Where's it at? So I should be able to hook my fuel line up right here, and that carburetor should be ready to run on that engine. So yeah, so we're gonna run this thing on some avgas with octane booster in it and see how it does. Some of you guys may like that, some of you may not, but that's what I'm gonna do. But before I hook up my fuel line, one thing I remembered, if you guys remember last year, when I took this thing apart, I poured some diesel fuel in the fuel tank and ran it through the system to keep the fuel pump lubricated and to get all the alcohol out of the lines and out of the tank. So before I do any of that, I'm going to have to put this in a container and run my fuel pump and try to get as much of this diesel fuel out of here as I can, then probably blow my lines out to try to get it cleaned out. So, and I want to take that carburetor and check the fuel bowl screws on it to see how tight they are before I bolt it on there for the final time. And I probably need a new gasket for it too, which I just dropped on the floor. So let me do that real quick. I'm going to call Schaffer off and ask them what my timing is, because I need to know what that is, and then I'll get right back to you guys. So hold on. I will be back. Hold on.